Hello, you're very welcome to the Overlap Rugby podcast. This is number 51, into the second half of the century.
Yeah, in pursuit of the century.
Exactly right. And there's all kinds of rugby to talk about as we enter in European terms into the very business end, and in fact parked as far as the Pro14 is concerned.
That's right.
Of the season. This is June now. This is the week of the June bank holiday that we're uploading this, and as such the season is pretty much coming to an end in climactic fashion this week with England. We're going to be talking all about Saracens Exeter, and obviously
in that game.
A bit more of a slow burner in France, but we are assured that eventually their season will end.
Yes,
well, we've been in contact.
Barrage time over there.
We've been in contact with the Top 14, and they have assured us that at some point their season will end.
It's true. It's true. We're reassuring the world by letting you know that. But we'll be having a little preview of those games as they get underway as well. Is it this weekend that they're playing those fixtures?
The barrage is happening this weekend. Indeed, as we upload this on Friday, the first game between Racing and La Rochelle is happening on Friday evening.
Yeah, so that'll probably have happened by the time we get this all out there, possibly. No,
it definitely won't have.
we'll put our ear to the grindstone, I suppose, and get all this up and out.
Exactly right.
For tomorrow.
Exactly right.
So yeah, it's a good show as well. We're gonna touch on Super Rugby, which is also heating up. Different, obviously, end of the season there, but they're
awesome end to the Super Rugby season as things stand.
Getting into competitive mode now because there's just so many teams within very much within catching distance of each other. So a lot of scrambling for places for the postseason over there, and then postseason in Europe as well. So
we'll also touch on a couple of other things in the news segment, like the climax, the very exciting climax, also of the 7 series, and the prospect of the under-20 World Championship getting underway.
Yeah.
But before we do any of that, we're going to just take a look back, being ourselves looking at rugby, as we say, through the lens of Leinster and Ireland. The domestic season finished for the Celtic nations and Italy.
South African.
Some South African teams. But the domestic season finished at the weekend with a great final in Celtic Park between Glasgow and Leinster, and Leinster booking trends as they do, got it done despite my thought that they wouldn't, and your... you said Leinster, but you ruled with your heart. You were very much on the fence. You did one of those head says, heart says kind of gibberish predictions.
I get you don't get very far going against Leinster though in these kinds of scenarios. They tend to be the safer bet, and it proved so there. It was kind of weird, odd, little ironic justice that, or not even justice really, it was Glasgow conditions that ultimately did for Glasgow in the second half, pure rain rugby, which is just part of the course over there. But they're very adjusted to playing on that fast track, like we were highlighting before the game, the slick surface for running rugby in all kinds of weather. And even though the football pitch looked in great nick, it just meant when the rains came, they didn't have. It basically ultimately showed that they just didn't have other ways of playing as many as Leinster have.
They had some purchase in the early part of the first half with their kicking game. It just felt in that early stage of the game as if this pitch, maybe it was my imagination, but the pitch seemed so much wider than a normal
there's
pitch.
Definitely a lot of grass was found with kicks from both sides as well.
Especially Glasgow earlier doors where Stuart Hogg was getting great purchase out of those long kicks. But the pitch just looked so large that the ball was just never going dead.
There were long periods of possession and long periods of play. It was lovely. People were saying it wasn't that absorbing a contest. I thought it was a great final, to be honest. I thought it had its twists and turns, had its strike at the beginning, and then Glasgow giving that score right back. There were many moments to regret from a Glasgow point of view, to be honest. When you look back on it, and on second viewing, I was just more impressed with Leinster's performance than on first viewing, because you're kind of in the heat of watching a final, it's always easy to be just some oversight of some really stellar stuff that you didn't necessarily pick up on, and then upon repeat viewing you seen super elite defence, a lot of the scramble that was going on in Leinster, a lot of Robbie Henshaw's dominant tackles to centres. In the first viewing, I was critical of Gary Ringrose for he did shoot up and miss some tackles, but the net result is if you're going to miss big, because it's going to force them in, and he wasn't missing anyone where it was him and no one.
It did cost one a couple of occasions. It's certainly better to stick those.
It is for sure, but I just those are more prone to happen when you're flying up and being in the face, and those two centres do take a very responsible role, and a direct responsible role in how Leinster's defence operates and shuts teams down.
But there's no question that I think it was a combination of Leinster's defence and their pack that won them the game.
Yeah.
The pack probably didn't get as much purchase from the referee as they deserved.
Yes.
But the defence did a great job, and
against a team like Glasgow, who, like as we were saying, super attacking side. They set a record this season for the most try bonus points in Celtic League history. They
unsurprisingly
loads of try bonus points. So
16 in the regular season, which is 21 games,
pretty unheard of. But this is why it's again as the rains come down.
Finals footy in wet weather conditions is a different game.
It's true, and you need to be able to play in it. And to be honest, it's critical of Dave Rennie, and I don't want to do that because I think he's splendid and he's perfect for this Glasgow team, and I hope they persist with him. But this will definitely sting because, going back to his time at the Chiefs as well, they would play probably the most spectacular rugby of the whole season and of any of the teams in it. But then ultimately would come across a Crusaders side or some side that would stop them in their tracks.
It's a familiar picture for him. I don't know that he's certainly not at the Super Rugby level or beyond won any silverware for all of his
brilliant,
delightful rugby,
wonderful rugby.
Silverware still eludes him,
and that's gonna weigh on the mind, to be honest. And it's kind of drawn into focus because I think Leinster Rugby TV were posting a bit. There was a 10-year anniversary of the 2009 victory, which was Leinster's first European victory. And it was it was a load of heads there. You had your Easton Seawas, your Michael Chekas, a load of the kind of the diaspora of Leinster, the Leinster alumni getting together. But it's just thinking, there was a lot of reflecting of how much easier it became once you kind of kicked that door down, and then subsequently the subsequent campaigns did seem easier by and large for all of them compared to what they went through in 2009. They lost a couple of group games in 2009. It was strange that they got as far as they did, and it was stuttering the whole time with the obvious highlight of the semi-final. But it's just once that's in place, the team and the club and the province can kick on, and then all the younger players coming through have this inherent sense of we deserve to be in finals footy. We should be. Any season without a trophy is a failure, and that's kind of pretty much been where Leinster have been at since that day. In terms of headspace, whereas this for Glasgow would have felt more like this is our time to do it. This is a new compared to the last team that won it, which played a lot of the same. But it's different.
This was sort of my mentality. All of what you're explaining was sort of my reasoning going into last week. But ultimately, they as you said, they just don't have enough strings to their bow right now.
There's an important addendum to attach.
It's just a little it was a little note of the naivety of Dave Rennie that I thought was more crucial than people would be let on, was taking off Sam Johnson very early. I think it was still 49 minutes or something like that for Peter Horne to get the double distributor going on in that weather. I don't Peter. He obviously had a part to play in that late try, Peter Horne.
They took that try very well collectively.
He was a good impact man to bring on for sure, but I think taking off Sam Johnson at that period, assuming he wasn't injured, I don't think he was, I haven't heard that he was a little bit naive and I think wrong. And I think in those conditions he did need that fronting up to Robbie Henshaw and maybe making a few dominant tackles and wrestling the ball back. That the presence of Sam Johnson should have stayed on the pitch. He's been a big part of
what they've done.
They've done this year, and I thought that was if it was an injury, it was a big loss, and if it was a tactical decision, it was a mistake. I think.
It's probably a fair call. There were obviously a few other moments that Glasgow would like to have back. We were talking about their halfbacks going in, and Hastings will want that play back before in the first half where he could have just given a pass. There were actually three receivers on, and only James Lowe as a defender outside.
It was great hustle D initially in that play. This was just after, just before the Cian Healy try. So 7-5, or was it 7-all or 7-5? 7-5, to Glasgow. And then they got an attack going, and they got through on the left hand side and got a floated pass out to DTH, and it looked like he was going to go in. And Leinster did a great piece of scramble defending, managed to just about hold them off. Their fringe defence then stood them up and stayed tight as Glasgow sort of eked their way infield. Leinster's D just wasn't giving them an inch. They were going to have to earn their score. And then finally, they did do a little subtle play. They moved it out, and Adam Hastings had a screenplay in front of him where both options, the narrow option and the wide option, would have been a try. And he just couldn't get the pass away in time. Got smacked with a big tackle, and then the chance was over, and it was a penalty. They had a penalty advantage,
which they kicked.
Which, I think, compounding the mistake, having not got the try that was there for them, they decided just to take 3 and move on. 10-5 lead on paper. All your commentators would say that's the wise and sensible decision, but as it stood, it was just a sigh of relief from Leinster. It relieved the pressure valve that was on them. It kept it a 1-score game, and Leinster went up the other end of the pitch.
Scored the try, took the lead.
The try, took the lead, got their pack going forward, and Glasgow, as you say, they went through from that point a period of 52 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. It's like the rain came down in the second half, so there's that recognition of like the first half, the conditions were there to play that rugby, and they did earn their score, and it was just a pass away, and they didn't make the pass.
And then when they didn't make the pass, they decided that was the opportunity gone. We're just going to take 3,
which is wrong-headed. And there's obviously all of those decisions have to be reviewed on a case-by-case thing. Maybe they didn't know, although I think that the weather was going to change to take a turn for the worse in the way that it did, or that conditions were going to deteriorate to that point. But they should have been appreciating that scores and chances in general against a team like Leinster in a final are going to be few and far between, and they're their whole identity on being a try scoring team, that for them to have success against Leinster, it needs to be them playing their game, and that involves them scoring tries. But it doesn't worry them as much, Leinster, because Leinster can score tries too. They had become used
to the idea of just having so many opportunities in the game and being so creative. And then what came in the second half, which was Leinster controlling the game, playing it in the right areas of the field, slowing everything up and really strangling Glasgow. They just couldn't cope, and then it only probably occurred to them late on in the game that that potential try could have done us a huge favour.
Indeed,
they showed a lot of good guts finally on Glasgow. They did show a lot of guts to come back and score that stellar try.
And Tekker's in that. It was against the 14 men, but it was executed perfectly. Pulled them left and right, spotted that Larmer was covering the backfield and was kind of probing across, went blind again and found the space across there, executing perfectly. They're such a capable team. They're the 2 deserving finalists in the context of this league this year. Glasgow were well worthy of their place, and Leinster generally are so good at recognising moments to put teams away. Never managed to do that to this Glasgow team. There were chances for them. There were probably some of Nigel's refereeing in the context of that scrum. That repeat scrum thing could have changed the picture, but the story stands that Leinster had their moments. There was that Gary Ringrose break that he and Lowe failed to link up and finish properly, but even without putting them away, it still felt like Leinster were the more controlled, calm team. In the
they could have been made to rue that. There's certainly some errors in it, but I think that the overall arching narrative picture is awesome defending when Glasgow had the ball in that first half for large parts. The scramble D was on point. The centres were defending really strongly. They weren't, after that initial try, which was a combination of really some sloppy plays and some almost looking like the Bulls a little bit, just looking detached and missing and soaking tackles and just not being in the right headspace. But really, after they conceded that try, in terms of defending, they didn't put too many feet wrong. They were very focused and very physical and completed tackles and kept their shape,
and were mostly making dominant hits both on and off the ball. To be honest, the contact zone was mainly Leinster's, which we were suspecting would be the case.
And that defensive pressure from Luke McGrath gives rise to that Gary Ringrose tries, and those are the breaks when you play with that focus and intensity. And it was a case of Hogg just losing focus for a moment, and no one from Leinster doing that.
It was a poor set from Glasgow as well, and it wasn't the only time that their subsequent exit as well. It was they were going crazy infield, needless phase.
They had been getting a lot of success from finding grass, because I think the pitch was much bigger than usual. And I think that they were going for that long hog boot, and they wanted to give him a bit of space to do that. But it
became telegraphed
because it was so quick.
Defenders onto him.
Because it was so quick, they couldn't get blockers in place, and then Luke McGrath just runs up, and Hogg already has quite a low trajectory on his long kicks. So it ended up not working for them.
No.
But a great little play from Luke McGrath, and one of the interesting things that Johnny Sexton was saying post-match was that Lancaster had been talking to them. One of his big focus on the week of was defending, but he had also spoken to Leinster after that Saracens game that it's not it's not about winning every moment. It's about winning the big moments, and that seemed to resonate through the team. I think Sexton mentioned a couple of times anyway.
Yeah,
and I just think it's a good reminder. Like, I think champion teams need to have that mindset in them and need to have that instilled in them, that there are huge important moments, and it's definitely a very good pressure relief for those players to be getting that message that no, you don't have to win every moment. Yeah. It's not a disaster if you don't win every moment, especially going into the Ireland team in the context of the World Cup.
Yes, yeah.
Just being able to exhale a little bit, and if things go wrong,
it means you can react to a mistake or just a shift in momentum in the game. You can allow for that. You need to have your eyes open, and it's a next play mentality where it's like the next play could be the match defining.
We're not controlling every minute, but in the crucial moments we're going to find and make the plays, and that's a big attitude.
Context of defence as well, and even in the context of Ringrose and Henshaw and just how dominant they were. They lovely probing kind of, they were Leinster in possession, and then Johnny Sexton puts a lovely kick down the tram lines that has to be gathered by I think it was Seymour, who's then like Kearney and Fardy patiently wait for him to get up to pick him, drive him over the line. Hogg peels away with the ball, and he's in his own in goal area, but you know how dangerous Hogg is from there. He could. We've seen him do before, where he dances out past the 22 and turns that into.
Alex good at the weekend.
Yeah, can do. But there's a chance, there's scope for players like that to do that. But the first thing that would happen was Gary Ringrose was in his face, forced him to make a pass infield, still in the in-goal area, and Robbie Henshaw just absolutely smashed. And then 5 metre scroll. Those are like really good pressure, applying pressure in the right areas, asking the right questions, forcing Glasgow to play from there. Like Hogg is dangerous, sure, but it's easier to.
That was the story of the second half. I mean, it adjusted. In the first half, it was much more ebb and flow. Nobody was really in top in terms of the kicking game. But like the big moment of that half, you would say, would be Cian Healy's try, where Leinster just controlled possession and used that physicality and strength. And Glasgow, again, for all of their techers, they are a good team. They do have a very good, solid pack, but they couldn't cope strength-wise with what Leinster were bringing them. It was just quick. It was controlled, but it was also drilled and routine, and they knew exactly what they were doing. And then when Cian Healy gets on the ball with Scott Fardy driving behind him, they just couldn't stop them, and that was a huge moment for Leinster, just taking the game to the area that they know they have the strength. And then obviously they had that lead. They took 3-pointers when they were on offer. I think was it 15-10 at half time exactly. They got another 3-pointer to go ahead.
In the first half they did. Second half they didn't as much thing.
But the point about what they did in the second half is that they changed the game and just in those wet weather conditions played perfect controlling footy. I think that the second half is really where Sexton, from an attacking perspective, I think he defended pretty well all day. But from an offensive perspective, he really came into his own. And he was shifting the play. He was calling everything. He was moving Glasgow around, deciding where Leinster were going to play the ball and putting glorious little kicks in behind.
By contrast, the Hastings kind of went anonymous in that half, and then Ali Price came off early on as well, and for little George Horn, and it was very much head scratching, trying to change things for Glasgow because it was slipping away, and there was a sense that they kind of just didn't make a good enough account of themselves in the first half.
It's not just that, like Glasgow will bounce back. The prospect of Aaron Cruden is a great one.
That's true.
Because for all of it, I don't feel particularly comfortable critiquing Adam Hastings just because he's had such a great 2019 so far. And he's a kid. He should be an understudy.
This is true.
If he was he was coming up in Leinster, he wouldn't be the guy we're hanging our hopes on. He would be Sexton's understudy
for sure.
And that's
but that is a telling factor in this final. Like it's not to throw shade on him, but you're talking about like the contrast between him and Sexton and what happens when the rain comes down in these finals as well, all that experience. It's just you're right in saying he should have someone more experienced there, and someone who's not going to alter the style of play, not going to be at odds with how he plays the game.
Totally.
Which is Aaron Cruden fits that mold perfectly. Like a running 10, he's a bit more experienced, got a Kiwi head on him. That should be perfect for that guy. And the sky's the limit for him because he really is quite talented. He seems to have all the skills. And Ali Price capable of controlling games as well. This is just one of those ones where it didn't happen at his speed, so he was kind of a bit more absent than he has been in previous weeks, which is a shame from Glasgow's point of view. But there were
Luke McGrath, by contrast, did have a big game.
He did have a big game. His defence is always very stellar.
But he controlled things well. It was more his tempo, just because of the and he box kicked better. But one of the things that Leinster will obviously ultimately be very happy with like I've heard people describe it like it's a very impressive win. It's a reassuring win from Leinster's perspective, just because like we talk about tactics and everything else, but Leinster's base is a lot higher than everyone else, and there's their standard of that pack in particular. Like I keep banging on the drum, but Cian Healy is so far ahead of any other loosehead in Europe that it's kind of farcical. And he was brilliant again this weekend. Delighted to see a front row forward win man of the match.
That was excellent.
Thoroughly deserved.
And
in fact, not as we were about to get into, not as generously rewarded by Nige as it should have been.
Probably
but,
true. But even outside of the scrum though, his carrying was stellar. His defensive breakdown was awesome, as it always is. But then the point with Leinster is that it's not just him. It was like Ty Furlong was making dominant hits. Jack Conan was making.
Reece Ruddock had a big game.
All of them step up and carry all the time, which makes it so hard to target players, which is what packs are likely to do in the event coming up.
They've definitely rebounded, and it helps that they've got a few guys back and fit. But the presence of Reece Ruddock in the team, in particular from a carrying perspective, and then the prominence of Cian Healy coming in that carry game has helped a lot. Because one of the things we were saying last October was that, you know, when Toulouse kind of did a job on Leinster by just man-marking James Ryan, and they were kind of caught with their pants down, that they had been leaning on him a lot for go forward.
For sure.
But it wasn't really the case again today. At the weekend, there was a lot more diversity to what Leinster were doing within their forward pack, and it was just too much, too strong, but also just very tackerful as well, just in those tight moments.
They were narrow. There were many times when like Leinster as a whole were narrow, and the whole team were within 15 yards of the ruck either side, but it didn't really matter. They were still flooding the same channel with 2 or 3 options, all of whom are ready and willing to take the ball.
It's a critique when it's not the right way to play a certain team. Like when you watch Ireland do that against Wales, you're pulling your hair out. But it's the way to play Glasgow for this Leinster team. It's just 100% where you need to take that game in those conditions on that occasion. For sure, that's what you do, and that's what makes Leinster so great, is that they can take games to different places.
That's it. It's a great luxury to have, because you look at so many quality teams that you really, really want to do well, but ultimately they're found wanting for a bit of nous and a bit of adjustment on the fly. You see in both of the semi-finalists in the Premiership showed signs of that as well. Northampton and Gloucester respectively just don't have a game plan that can go with what that is. It's only going to be a shootout, and they're only going to lose. And it's that was like, compare that to Leinster, who have literally gone seasons playing different ways. This season looked different from last season as well, but you feel like there's an archive and a memory, and they collectively know when a game is in a certain place, what to kind of do instinctively. And you see some of the like, even when their F15 is named, which only has a handful of starters and a few of the young academy lads, you still get the sense that collectively they kind of are on the same page with where they want to take a game, and that can be any number of ways. So
it's a huge win for Leinster. They'll be delighted with it. A lot better ring to it than 2 defeated semi-finals.
Two lost finals would not be good.
No, it would be all too Claremont, and it's a good little championship credential for them, and they are the second best team in Europe.
So it's
good.
It's right and proper that they're champions, although unlucky Glasgow. But the other note you're talking about is Nige.
Well, Nigel Owens has been one of the best refs in the world. I defend him to the hilt. They just have a lot of critics, but there's no question that his refereeing has been a big talking point. And of course, you know, the Glasgow fans, who were very generous to us in terms of their comments and likes in the week running up to this, we were quite generous to them with our predictions. We really did think they were going to do a job, but Leinster got it done. But they have sort of
some bones to pick.
A lot of people. Well, no, I don't. This is my point: is that they have leaned in on this Nigel thing. And I don't think that that's fair. I don't think that Nigel... the first thing I'd say is that I don't think his refereeing affected the results one way or the other. No. And I think if you do think that, you're really reaching. You're seeing one half of the mistakes and not seeing the other half.
Because there were plenty, and that's what I was saying. It was just leniency overall.
Well, I've got it down to 2 errors that he's really struggling with at the moment, and I actually think one is bigger than the other. I think the first is leniency, and that's actually my less big one, but it's obviously what
it's at odds with what World Rugby are saying and releasing as well a lot of the time. In the context of high tackles and collisions, he's always one for the mitigating factors compared to the aggravating factors or whatever. And he does just want to play on as best as he can. He wants to look for any excuse he can to play on, regardless of the circumstances. And that meant that the Fraser Brown incident, where he hit Luke McGrath off the ball in the first half, probably by the letter of the law, a yellow card. Most other
refs
are giving
he
a yellow
said
card.
That he thought that Luke McGrath had, it was a cheap shot to the back of a player who's like toes in it. It was completely but it really would have hurt.
Nigel's verbals in that is like, well, he thought he had the ball. It's like, Nigel, you don't know what he thought. But that is just an example of him looking for anything that he can get to
that incident, that was actually a pretty nasty shot. It was completely blindsided Luke McGrath and hurt and stung, and it's a clear yellow card. Likewise, the Rob Kearney incident later on, which has been covered by the Glasgow fans, was a red card.
It was a red card,
unquestionably. Like, he caught him in the air, head hit the floor, head smacked the ground, dangerous, and one of those Rob just head the ball moments where he just goes charging in and he doesn't know where he is and what he's doing, and he just plows into him in the air, and that's too dangerous. That's a red.
And that's how Stewie Hogg's game and tenure at Glasgow all finished prematurely. So it was a justifiable grievance, but it was inconsistent in the context of the game, because Nigel had already been kind of just not basically. It's like one of those when you're looking at underage or something, and the benefit of the doubt is always with the player, and he's trying to keep the game. He's trying to minimise his involvement and intervening in any capacity with the game and the result, which ultimately balances out. And the other in terms of criticising that aspect of his of him consistently being at odds with the other refs, is that he tends to produce better games, less stop-start, and then incidents like
he's been in charge of some of the best games.
Exactly,
that's true.
Yeah,
but there is an area, and this is an interesting one, because running rugby is what people want to see, and a lot of people have a beef with scrums, but scrums are great. We're defenders. Scrums are just a brilliant, unique part of rugby union, and they're pretty awesome. And super technical and interesting. And Nige just doesn't seem to give a shit what's going on at them. I have two clear examples of just typical Nige reffing, one either side, that happened in this game. And one of them was when Leinster were, whatever they were, 15 or 18-10 up. I can't quite remember which. I think it was 18-10 at the time. Yeah. And Leinster were camped out, about 60-minute mark, camped out in the Glasgow line. And they got a penalty and they took a scrum or whatever.
They got a penalty from
I think this actually came from the Robbie Henshaw thing that you were describing.
The first thing that happened was penalty at scrum time.
Yeah.
And then Johnny and the team made the decision to go for a scrum again.
And then, watching what happened between Cian Healy and I think it was Xander Fagerson still on the field.
There were three consecutive resets, all of which were penalty to Cian.
Xander Fagerson went down onto the ground, and Nige says, just a slip, we'll reset. Then Cian Healy gets a huge shove on him, forces him up. He breaks his bind. He loses his position in the scrum and turns in and stands up. Nige says both stand up, reset. Then there's another slip, another reset, and then the ball goes into the scrum again. Glasgow get a little steady, but it isn't given a chance to push or settle or anything. But the ball gets to the base, and Nige says, use it. Yeah. I don't like scrums. I don't want to see them. Yeah. And it's really frustrating. I mean, if that scrum is refereed properly, which is fair, it's part of the game. If the loosehead is doing a job on the tight head gets punished, the loosehead gets rewarded, and that's what was happening there. And that should have been penalty, yellow card, probably penalty try, killing of the game. And Leinster ultimately had to make use of the ball, couldn't really do it, and it was a reprieve for Glasgow, big style.
Leinster ended up dropping the ball. The other more after that, in the next phase, Luke McGrath dropped the ball after two phases. It was a scrum to Glasgow. They took Cian Healy off. On comes our sub. First engage, penalty Glasgow. Which you're just going,
it was a fair
penalty, but you're just going, where's the consistency in that?
That's telling from Leinster's perspective that for all the depth in the world, when Cian Healy goes, their scrum goes to shit. It goes from being the best scrum in Europe to a pretty ropey scrum. Just from taking Cian Healy out of it. So that's obviously a concern. But there was another incident for Glasgow, which was also just a crucial moment.
Having slightly later than this, having R22.
Having got the reprieve, they had a scrum in Leinster's 22. I think that the score still at 18-10, but earlier in the game with a real chance to make a play. And Leinster got a scrum, I think it was, and Glasgow got a huge shove on, Leinster tight head, the bench tight head Porter just turns in, bounces up, and Nige instantly from the opposite end of the scrum decides, penalty Leinster, you're not driving straight. And this is Nigel's favourite scrum call that he gives against looseheads all the time. That is almost always complete horseshit. It's just all you have to do if your tight head is being if you're the tight head and you're being given a rough time, just take a step back and turn in and Nigel will give you a penalty because he's not driving straight. Like, if a loose head gets an advantage on the tight head, listen, if he shifts his hips and angles in towards the hooker, that's not driving straight. Nigel couldn't see that, and I don't think that's what was happening in that scrum. I think he got the shove on, got the engage perfect on that on the tight head. And the natural thing that happens when a loose head gets on top of the tight head is that the scrum wheels a bit. It's not deliberately wheeling. It's not necessarily not driving straight. If you're driving straight and you have two props even, and then one prop very dominant over another, the scrum is going to turn a little bit. That's not deliberate wheeling of the scrum. That's good scrummaging, and then you should be watching what the tight head is doing, and if he loses his bind, or if he loses his engage, if he disconnects from the scrum, that's a penalty. And that's 100% what happened at that scrum, and Leinster got a penalty, a nonsense penalty for it, which gave them the exit that ultimately allowed them to take enough time off the clock that Glasgow couldn't get back into the game. So these are huge calls, and it's really frustrating because I like Nigel a lot, and in other general areas of the field, as you say, he makes a big effort to make the game as entertaining as possible. But I think that the scrums are super interesting and great and need to be respected. And the work that props are doing, I mean, they must just be pulling their hair out, because at the end of the day, for all of your work, a lot of the refs just don't give a shit what you're doing, aren't interested, don't know in some cases.
Yes, it seems that.
And like, there are refs who don't even look at the scrum, who are looking at the back line for offside and turn around, the scrum's gone down, we'll just reset. Or the ball's at the 8's feet, just use it. Like, the scrum is a huge part of rugby, and you have to respect it.
It's also the part where the most weight is shit. Like, it's dangerous to do that, and that's my take on it as well. It's like, to be not officiating properly, allowing things to like collapse scrums and just saying use it while people are still driving, even though it's someone's on the ground, someone's head's in the dirt, and people are driving, and there's massive men in that scrum. So like, that's why in my mind it needs to be officiated properly and punished duly and accordingly. If you're being dominated in the scrum, that means it's and it's not up to the ref to make the game flow, and it has to be got as much as you do want. Like, communication is key in that. You want them to contribute. You don't want them just like not communicating with either team.
You don't want them actively destroying the game either.
But sometimes if a team is that dominant, sometimes the penalties are like 12 penalties in a row at scrum time is something that no ref will ever give, even if a team wins 12 consecutive engagements. And it's just, you won't see those penalties coming at all. And then the other thing that I like, and this is kind of conjecture, like, I don't think Nigel is the only one to do this, but it feels like the leniency kind of gets a bit tighter if a team's pulling away, that he's more inclined to ping that team that's in the ascendancy to try and pull the game back into balance.
He always wants the spread to be beaten.
This is it. Good competitive back and forth games, which is what we enjoy watching, and the free flowing element to it is also what we're asking for. So it's kind of it's tough to kind of zero in on where the right balance is, but you're right in saying, and I thought so as well, that Nigel's officiating at scrum time in general shows a lot of this, and at the weekend there were those two prime examples that affected both teams. So
there were two very obvious foul play decisions and two very obvious scrum decisions that were just dead wrong. Dead wrong, 100% incorrect. And it was, as it happens, it was two for each team. The Glasgow critique is just one-eyed. And like, if anybody's bitching about offsides in defence, get over it. Everyone's allowed to be offside all the time. This season that ship has sailed.
Everyone's offside.
Like, you're looking for offside penalties. Are you kidding me? They're just not coming.
They're not coming. I wonder, will they be back for the World Cup with a vengeance?
I don't know. Maybe.
But
and just before we finish up, I just want to say, just mention that the competition as a whole, having finished up, I think it's in a great place. I think it's in a super place.
I think, as I suspected when they were introduced, the two South African teams have added, and the two conference systems kind of system now has added a whole new dimension, an excellent dimension to this competition, because obviously compared to the Premiership and Top Tours, there's no relegation in this one, which is always a slight thrown against it, at kind of diminishing its qualities. But the style of rugby played by pretty much all teams, and then the things like little subplots like the rise of Benetton this year, all excellent for the game.
The only difference that the absence of relegation even means is that the Cheetahs, Zebra, Dragons and Kings have been playing dead rubbers for a while. And that's, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not too I'm not too pushed on that. But above them, even Edinburgh and Cardiff and the like, Like, they were pushing it right until the end. And I think there's potential for this tournament, the standard of this tournament to raise. Because there's a lot of teams that are just not quite hitting their potential. You think of Ulster, you think of Connacht, you think of Edinburgh, you think of Cardiff. Scarlets as well. Like, there's a load of potential in a load of these teams. I'm excited to see if a few of them can get going, all of a sudden it could be a game changer. It could become a really tough.
Well, it's already hot, but this is the thing. Like the addition of the South African kind of teams from Super Rugby added that kind of open dynamic to it. There was always there in some simmering away in some teams, because Connacht had that renaissance, and Clonethley were in it as well. So it's like running rugby pays dividends in this league, and so it's encouraged. Even though a lot of the teams play in wet weather very often, and you get to see contrasting kind of conditions when you're flicking from one game to the other a lot of the time, particularly now with the South African teams, because they're literally in other season mode sometimes. But so it's just an interesting, colourful competition, and at the end of the day, the two right teams got to the final all the way, and if they're gonna hopefully, the only thing it's lacking is teams like really doing a job in Europe. But this year you had stories like Edinburgh finalists. This is it. Yeah, it's like this year they did kind of kick on. You had teams like Edinburgh going above and beyond, and then ultimately learning a harsh lesson about fighting on multiple fronts.
Getting punished for it. In the league by.
But that's a cool dynamic to see, because then it means there's growth for that team. They have to figure out, why did that happen?
That could be something that hits Benetton next year, because they're competing in the top level of Europe now.
Yes, so you could see them drop off next year in the other comp and make way for. You presume the Welsh teams will be a bit resurgent, probably post World Cup as well. Like this was a pretty dismal kind of outing for the Welsh regions in a Grand Slam year, which is very strange and contrasting.
But not for Wales.
But not for Wales as a whole. Everyone loves. This is it.
No, but I mean, just in general, their regions being way worse than their national team is just a long established fact.
That's true. Yeah, it's true. But
so the league is in, I think, a very good place. We'd like to see the SAFA teams kick on a bit, and
Cheetahs kind of came with a flash in the first season. They did kind of die off this season. They were kind of figured out and weren't quite at the level, and not enough to make playoff contention at all. But they still have a style of rugby that's engaging and fun to watch, and they're dangerous for any team that has to travel there as well, because it's a tough road to travel that far. But so that was
the Pro 14. The season is over.
2019. And Leinster champs. So
Leinster champions. Excellent. Absolutely happy days.
With that, we should move on to England, where Premiership is wrapping up this weekend.
Twickenham. Saturday, 3:00.
Yeah, everything's decided apart from who's going to win it.
Not clashing with the Champions League final.
Yes, well, that's good, wisdom, right, and proper. Yeah, because you're competing for eyeballs.
You've seen silly things.
Yeah, I've seen silly, but I think they're all getting wise to the fact that you want eyeballs on your screen.
Yeah,
and going against football is just not sensible.
Going against an all English football final with your English final is naive.
Yeah.
So it actually serves as a curtain raiser for the sports fans over there for that. It's 3:00 kickoff. Saturday afternoon. Saracens against Exeter.
They're the two best, again, like we were saying about Glasgow and Leinster, the two best teams in the tournament.
There's no arguing.
The league table doesn't lie, as you say. And to be honest, and the semi-finals, like the Pro 14 as well, demonstrated that gulf between them and the rest.
Saracens, they've been brilliant. They have fallen foul of Exeter's sort of suffocating game plan in the past. They'll need to be there. They'll need to be sharp. They need to be on their blow. They'll need to be focused if they're going to front up physically to what Exeter bring. I think if they do that, that'll be enough. But they're going to need to be there physically. Every bit the way they were in the European final. As abrasive, as sort of dominant in the tackle area. And if they do that to Exeter, my suspicion is that Exeter aren't going to have the answers. So that's got to be a huge focal area for them. They have a couple of interesting decisions. I mean, there's rumour that Brad Barrett could be back again. They're currently doing work on him.
They're patching him up somewhere, and someo's screwing something in. And he's back out.
And with Tompkins obviously coming on and scoring a hat-trick in the semi-final, I mean, you wouldn't worry. So they have a couple of decisions to make, really. I wouldn't mind seeing Rhodes back in there again,
just for that physicality.
But I mean, like, you're not losing physicality with Skelton, obviously. I just think that Skelton has huge impact off the bench. I think Rhodes is a super flanker who can do all kinds of work on the Exeter back row.
Yeah.
And then you can move a Toji back where he belongs into the second row and bring on a marauding skeleton for whomever.
Yeah.
And towards the back end of that game.
They have such an embarrassment of riches to choose from. You're also talking like Tompkins got a hat trick.
Yeah, exactly.
The weekend. So it's like, are you leaving him out now? Well, Barrett's back probably for Szarzewski.
That's the question.
Is he on the bench? Who else is there? There's
the risk if you bring Barrett back of him going down 5 minutes in and you losing a bench position.
Yeah,
they might just go for Tompkins, but I don't know what they'll do.
But it's like they're just an embarrassment of riches to choose from. So it is going to be a case of if they're really gunning for it and just up to the physicality of
they need to be defending with physicality. They can't allow Exeter to suffocate.
If they're soak tackling the whole time, Exeter will pick and jam their way to the line and get there.
That's what they do all season all the time. So they just can't afford to let that happen. They have to be dominant. But then the original sin is letting Exeter get there, which is where discipline becomes a serious factor. And cheap penalties are a no-no because Exeter will take that ball and stuff it up their jumper and have it up there for as long as it takes to score. And that is something that they'll do. So Saracens' discipline is obviously a huge factor, and then defence is a huge factor as well for them.
What I suspect, just even looking at the way the semi-final went, where like they were up against a Gloucester team that were firing shots, that were in it for around 30 minutes.
This brilliant away crowd.
That were all there, and they were in the game for the first 30 minutes, but then between the 31st minute and the 38th minute, Sarries go try.
Yeah.
And it's just game over. And they did the same to Leinster. They recognised the big moments to score, and like when they're on it like that, and it breaks the back of the game. And then contrasting that with Exeter, who were in a bit of a ding dong battle with Northampton for a time, and then they were kind of Northampton let them away with it, and things like Reinach's drop ball before half time, which could have changed the game entirely, and then immediately after half time they concede as well. That's a 14-point swing in that margin. That's really more Northampton's doing than Exeter's, although they took the try really well. But I don't suspect that those opportunities, and then even the individual, like Flaherty's try was excellent, but I just don't see that kind of space for him.
That's what it's going to take. One of those guys. I think Cordero's gone injured, but someone like Noel or someone like O'Flaherty, getting on the ball, Slade, and making something happen that isn't part of their structure, because their structure could end up coming up with nothing against that Sarries D, which is narrow, which is like perfectly set up to defend Exeter. It is a clash of the Titans in that way, because Exeter are so effective with that narrow game, and Saracens D has just been letting nobody through in that area.
And like if it was their B teams against each other, but that game they played a few weeks back in the season, the way that kind of went for Exeter was that they were just smashing up narrow, and a very bullish Sarries were targeting the ball, getting it out of there, and then scoring off the counter attack.
Indeed. And I think Exeter event did get a try, but they worked really hard for it, and Saracens only went and responded with it,
which is something they've done all season long. Sarries, whenever they can see, they did it against Glasgow, they did it again at the against Gloucester at the weekend.
That was great.
They just insta respond.
You
7 points and then 7 back.
Scores and just takes a breather, and then damn. It's gone.
Yeah.
The exit is
so
crucial.
Great opening try, you're in the and it's gone.
That's another thing, is that what Exeter really struggled. They didn't get punished, but they had a couple of really loose kicks from Nick White in their exit game. I figured there's going to be a lot of kicking in the early parts of the game. And I think Saracens' kicking game is so much more disciplined. Like, Saracens will be trying to move Exeter around, get their pack running, tire them out a little bit. You can see them so easily going from left of the pitch to right of the pitch, and then either Farrell or Good or even Szarzewski just slipping a little low grass finder or touch finder in behind them. Those are the kind of kicks that just turn like a big pack. That's the kind of game you want to be playing against them, moving them from side to in behind, turning them constantly. That's what you'd expect to see from Saracens.
And then a strike.
And Exeter, they exit with box kicks, and you got to be careful against that back three. You got to get them right. The kicking game is huge.
Well, like Leinster exit with box kicks mostly as well, and we saw great success from it against Glasgow. They had a few attacking ones thrown in the mix, and Glasgow weren't dealing with them. But what we saw against Sarries was just a back three that are designed to shut that game down. So if Exeter are to persist with that,
especially with Nick White's loose kicking game,
this is it. I fear for Exeter. You've been casting aspersions about the roundedness of their team all season long, and I think that compared to the team that drew with Munster at Christmas, I think they're much better now. I think they're actually taking a few more chances, but I still maintain that their structure is just a little bit limited.
It's comparable to Munster, where they have some great players, but they don't actually design their game around feeding them. And when they do get fed with the ball, it's as a result of what their forward pack has done. They win games up front. That's why they try and do it.
And they win that whole league doing that, because they're like consistently the Premiership sides tend to have that little bit of softness around the pack and a brittleness that doesn't tend to exist in the European game as much. When you're looking at just Exeter, it doesn't feel like they have to do much to win these games a lot of times. And then even with the semi-final was a good little summary of their season, where Northampton were firing shots, had their chances, made mistakes, and then by the end Exeter were just like walking over them for soft kind of scores to kind of inflate the scoreboard a little in their favour. But the very last try was just farcically soft, and you just Northampton done at that point. So they tend to wear teams out, and it tends to be the last quarter where they're looking to build even if they're building a lead, they just want to have it done. And it tends to be that the games are broken just from the relentlessness of their physicality.
You could see
that there to match them.
Yeah, you could see that picture from them in the sense that if they can get a leg up in that breakdown area, if they can attack and strip Sarries of the ball, really focus on the 3 forward set pieces that are like the breakdown area, which is its own little. It's not a set piece, but it is its own little area of focus for the forward pack, and then obviously the scrum and line out, and like defensive line out. If they can cause George problems, which he occasionally has, get up on the line out and spoil. If they can get a leg up, obviously no Mako, Barrington and Lamasatele, they're not bad scrummagers by any stretch, but certainly
in fact Sarries scrum has been super impressive this year. I think it's actually been quite improved this season.
But there's just so much heft in that back five that it's so tough to get a leg up. But if Exeter can get a leg up on the engage, for example, I would say Ben Moon against Lamasatele is their best bet of maybe getting something happening there. That could be an area of dominance for them, and then obviously the line-out drive, which is huge.
It's a fulcrum for them against any team, but it has to be on point if they're going to compete.
And that's where penalties come in. If they can win penalties, punish Saracens for their mistake, put them in the corner, and then get a leg up, catch them a little cold,
take 5 or 7,
be very structured, take 5 or 7. That's the picture for Exeter. It is there.
Yeah. You can see the way. We've seen this game. These two have been flying the flag for the Premiership for the last few seasons.
Yeah.
So we kind of know in broad speak what it's going to look like and what each team's going to try and do, and then you're going to get as a result of that, you're going to get a sense in that first half and even the first quarter of which team is actually implementing that more successfully. Depending on where the game goes, you'll
I would say
get a sense.
I would say that like a 10-point lead for Saracens is game over. A 10-point lead for Exeter is game advantage on. Exeter, but on. Definitely game on. Like it's not the same thing. Saracens can strike, and then they can strike. You know, they're the best team in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. That's the fact of it. The cold hard fact, and the best team in Europe with a penchant for just grab and try. They don't stop and they don't stop from minute 1. They're always looking for the opening, and it's only that it comes later in the those try little things that happen in those games are because they've figured it out at that point after 50 odd minutes of probing. Now Faz knows, and they're comfortable, and they know exactly what they're doing. So they're like, what I'm basically saying is that I think Sarries are going to do it,
think so too.
Barring just barring
just being a little off,
or a little soft. If you see just a little bit of fatigue.
The physical war is where it starts. If Sarries get parity, I think he could be done. I think that's enough for Sarries. They'll win it in the other areas. But if Exeter get advantage in those physical areas, that's where you expect to see it.
Yeah, so that's why I think the opening quarter is the most interesting of it.
And I really do think a hungry Rhodes is a good man to throw in there. I mean, Skelton's had his couple of big games. He can come off the bench and make an impact. Rhodes is going to be hungry for some finals footy now.
Yeah,
He's missed,
think so.
He did play the Munster semi-final, but he missed the final. He didn't play last week. He came off the bench. Get him in there at number 6, and I promise you that boy will make plays.
It's having that depth. There's a knack to that timing, the charge for each of them.
And just getting a guy hungry enough that when you throw him in there, he's going to be class. Yeah, and I think that's where Rhodes is.
Plus, a barnstorming 20 minutes from
Will Skelton
is so scary. In a final,
a tired man with him running at you.
Exactly.
I'm done.
You're done. Not happening. That is not happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you you think you're probably leaning Sarries as well?
Yeah, I think all over the park.
The whole balance of like just
where Ben Spencer's at, and where Nick White's at.
you really don't like. You've never liked Nick White.
I still don't like Nick White. No. I really do like Ben Spencer.
I do.
What a
find! He's been one of their finds of the season. Yeah. He's really grabbed that jersey off Wigglesworth, and Wigglesworth isn't doing anything particularly. He comes off the bench and does his job. And it's just that Spencer's been exemplary all season. Totally. He really has. His box kicking is on point, competitive all the time.
Super passing. He's
wisdom in his defence as well. He's not like he'll miss a few tackles here and there, but he's always in the right place where the tackle needs to be made. For him, he's not in the way of a guy trying to make a dominant hit. He's covering the extremities. No, he's a very savvy footballer, and he's.
Yeah, we're waxing lyrical about Sarries. We may look a little silly if Exeter do it, but I'm sticking with my guns.
Yeah, but we're going to stick with our guns the same way we've done it all podcast. Every time it's like we're going to stick with the better team that we think is going to win.
Yeah,
we're just going to call that. But there's many pictures that the game can take, and they are the two most deserving teams. So hopefully it'll be a great final. Hopefully the weather suits it as well. We obviously wouldn't want to have too much of a rainy day final. It would be nice to see some.
I actually have no idea what to do, except that it's quite hot here in Dublin, which would lead me to believe that it's probably even hotter in London.
Yeah.
So it'll probably be, whether it's wet or not, it'll be warm, I'd say.
Probably. So, yeah. But yeah, so with that, best of luck to both teams, because we're not no horse in that race. But yeah,
no.
But it'll be interesting to watch the last Premiership game of 2019.
100%, and we're looking forward to English rugby wrapping up. And I know reasonably reasonable. 1st of June, we'll let you away with it.
Yeah.
That's a fine time to end. As for the French,
Le Barrage
begins. So you don't get this is the first week of the season where there's no game involving Toulouse or Clermont.
Well, that's a sad indictment.
They're games of consequence.
They are.
The first one is Montpellier against Racing, but we're going to save. No, it says Racing against La Rochelle. Excuse me. And we're going to save that one and talk about it. We're just going to get the other one out of the way.
The other one is the two uglier teams. Montpellier and Lyon. And it is in Montpellier, is it?
Yeah. No, it's in Lyon.
Lyon finished third.
Sorry,
yeah. Actually, Montpellier just scraped it.
Yeah.
Lyon. They've been doing. They play a bit more conservative. They're like the representatives of the old. In the top couture, in my mind, anyway. With the halfbacks, Toussaint and Boxis, and kind of
Devil Armitage on the wing.
Yeah, you're thinking no. Whereas, Montpellier are always Montpellier, which is a kind of a very much a mercenary team.
Away. I haven't been watching too much of them, to be honest. They were rubbish in the Champions Cup. They didn't take any interest.
It's very hard to get a read on what they're going to do in finals.
In finals, footy is a different thing. You can plug away and win your regular season home games and get enough tight away wins, which all of their games seem to be tight. But for my money, when Montpellier looked down and out, and now all of a sudden Cruden's back, they got Nadolo and Nagoose on the wings. It looks game on.
Well, reading the team sheet, you think, same as always with Montpellier, that Montpellier have this.
Yeah.
You have to think that. Like, looking at the teams, you're just going, there's too much quality littered throughout that team for it not to work.
Look at the thing. Camera, Peog at that scrummy is a class little player. Cruden, Jan Serfontaine, Nadolo, Nagusa. What a team.
Yeah. Why it doesn't work.
I don't like that second row, actually, looking at it there. Paul Willemse and Nico Janssen van Rensburg are two loosey-goosey.
Kind of, they can do the vanishing man.
And they can do the appear to get a yellow card.
Appear spontaneously with a horrendous shot.
Willemse was finding himself in a French jersey, to my horror, in the Six Nations, and just doing nothing good with it.
Yeah, that's probably an area where they suffer, perhaps, when you're looking at the showstoppers out the back line, probably not getting the service that they need.
But gee whiz, that team should... I think they have been kicking on, like a big win away in Clermont. I know Clermont didn't have too much going for them, but winning out there in Blooming Marshall
Michelin is a no mean feat. So it tends to... That'll give them momentum going into... And it was a tight game as well, which is suitable for finals footy as well. Yeah, my belief is that Montpellier will get it done, but I just don't know, because I don't know.
It's hard to know. It's hard to we speak on other games with authority, but we haven't been watching enough.
I haven't watched enough of Lyon, to be honest, to know as much. it seems they're a bit more of a like compared to just the other teams in it. Like the other ones, Racing and La Rochelle, but then the two who are also qualified, Toulouse and Clermont, all playing such a beautiful high scoring game. And even in the last regular weekend, all of those teams that were in contention were just putting scores on the teams that were out of it and getting themselves running their drills, getting
as compared to Lyon, who scraped past Grenoble by a 1.18-17 win, and that's not as good to be carrying in. Yeah, like my suspicion, better team philosophy and all of that is that Montpellier will get it done away from home. Montpellier are bottlers, so that could not happen.
This is it. Yeah. It's very hard to trust Montpellier to do anything, but.
It's not that game of massive consequence. They're earning the right to lose to Clermont, I believe, in the next round. It would be interesting if Montpellier won, because then they go against Clermont, having just beaten them there.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting dynamic.
That would be an interesting dynamic. But the bigger game, the more fun game, game I'm excited to see, two card-carrying members of the French Renaissance Racing against La Rochelle. Excuse me.
Excellent running teams.
This is great.
How many points can between them? I think that because La Rochelle put 82 on 81 on
Racing was a more tight 35-3 win.
So that's crazy. They both play such attacking rugby, and
there's a real Kiwi true line to what La Rochelle are doing.
Yeah, they don't like rooks. They don't let the ball die a lot of the time.
Ehia West has actually come into his own in a La Rochelle shirt.
Mm-hmm.
They were great in the Amlin Cup. So the league position is a little deceptive because they were competing on those two fronts all the way to the last week in Europe, and doing so with technical rugby and great performances.
Yeah.
They are going to miss, and still missing, Victor Vito.
That was it. They were missing him for the final. It was a dead leg. Jesus, it could be a nightmare. But because he is such a big loss, such a big fulcrum in terms of that Kiwi element of just keeping the ball in play, and as well as he doesn't shirk his responsibility, makes some really good physical hits in defence. So he's been a real leader for them that they will be missing. Yeah. Racing,
there's fun players on both sides all over the pitch.
Yeah. It's going to be in the U Arena as well, isn't it? Under that roof, it's going to be just running rugby, and wouldn't surprise me to see tries.
The best game of the season, I think, of any game all season, was played in that game. It was Racing against Toulouse in that stadium, in the European quarterfinal. It was probably ultimately the best game of the season when Toulouse won with 14 men.
Yeah,
and that was a similar kind of dynamic. Racing, I'm feeling a little more positive for this time. I think that pack is so big and strong, as well as being dynamic. I mean, that great balanced second row of Nakarawa and Donica Ryan, and then obviously Finn Russell, who's of all the players on the pitch the most exciting, which is quite a boast.
Great. And so he's had a lovely little touch for the first try they scored last week as well in the finals. Just a little take it to the line round the back of the defender's head. He's in form. He is in form, and he's excited. He's enjoying his rugby, enjoys playing in that in that stadium with some of those superstars inside and outside him.
Zebo and Dulan and Rokotoko and Vakatawa running off him, and it's just a lot of fun.
All guys on the same kind of wavelength. But then La Rochelle have excitement out in that back three as well. They have
100%.
What is your man's name? Little Rates. Is danger, and he's actually a lovely player to watch. He's very balanced when he's running. And what's your man's name? Scored a few tries the weekend, fullback for them.
Murray Valu. Another class Fijian attacks the bunch. Again, Dumaru, solid operator in the centre, and then those classy Kiwi halfbacks keeping it running. But I just think that the Racing pack is a little better than their pack.
Probably, especially without the Victor Vito. But they're probably one Victor Vito shy of being pretty much on par with.
Aldridge's a cracking player, but
he is, but he's not Victor Vito.
No,
it's like that's no kind of shame in saying that. And Aldred has been a great all season. Did well in the French jersey as well, to be honest, I thought. So he's. I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be an exciting game. I kind of think that Racing are going to blow it somewhere in these 3 games to come.
Blow it. I think they're just going to have to go away against Toulouse. And they couldn't win at home against Toulouse.
Yeah.
So what makes you think they're going to win away against Toulouse?
Yeah, this is true.
Come on.
I think there's loose elements to that.
I'm just going to make sure
they're not quite there yet at finals mode yet.
Yeah.
But could very well be next season. Like the bones are all there.
They do have an identity crisis of being just a little too loose and tending to give it up.
They're too loose in big moments. They don't collectively. No one's there to recognise what they should be doing when they need to slow a game down or something. Like,
exactly.
There's no sense.
They do
of
have a fit Machino back, and they have been winning games. And Machino was a guy who was missing for a lot of their season.
Yeah, and like before Finn got there, he was the general that was directing everything about them. Got them as far as the final, and they very nearly got the better of Leinster that day. So
they were a much more measured, controlled outfit.
It's been a crazy addition having
Zebo
and Finn coming in.
The addition of those guys has come into their defence, because I still obviously love Finn, but it coincided with a long-term injury for Machino, which was probably not ideal.
No, and it meant that people like
Iberov and
Iberin, but what's your man's name in the centre? Shaughnessy.
He's been injured as well.
He has been. He was there in the first half of the year while Machino was away, and it just looked like they were at odds with each other, because they were just like Finn and him just played the game very differently. But obviously getting Finn into his side is going to take some growing pains and adjustment, because everyone needs to get up to speed with him. And it's made for what they are, as a fundamentally very exciting outfit. But a little bit loose and a little bit soft at crucial times.
Rugby's PSG.
Rugby's PSG. This is it, and they're ultimately not going to get it won, despite spending a lot of money on class players and playing a lovely brand. Yeah,
exactly. But that said, any chance that you have to watch Finn Russell and the boys play is a treat to the eyes.
Finn Russell versus Ohio West. That's an interesting game of running rugby anyway. Like they're both going to be running at each other.
I think Finn is a better.
I think he's a better playmaker.
No, I think Racing will get it done this week anyway. Okay, I think it's a big leap from home win against La Rochelle to away win in Toulouse. But I think that they'll get it done this week. And set up that great rematch of the best match in the season out in Toulouse.
Well, it's happened a few times this season. Those two meeting now, and that's my head is in the Toulouse camp. My heart is with Toulouse, to be honest. But I wouldn't begrudge Clermont either. But my narrative that I have in this for French rugby this season has Toulouse winning it.
Well, they haven't we'll talk about them next week. Obviously, as they're up, but they haven't played a lot of rugby in recent times, which could be positive or negative.
It can be a bit stagnant, but in essence it means that all the dead rubbers are done. The relegation has been decided. No one has to look at Perpignan again at all for another year plus, which is excellent.
Good luck.
Excellent news.
Goodbye and good luck.
All of that is decided, and it's only on to.
And I think Bayonne are coming up. At least they won a playoff against Brive, which was big crowds there, and that was happy days. And so that is European rugby for this week. Anyway,
this week, there's still some European rugby to come in 2019, but
right. We're pivoting on now to Super Rugby. It's a load of stuff going on here. It's super exciting. A load of teams in the mix.
It's great. I can't remember a Super Rugby season with as many teams as in contention as they are.
In recent seasons, in old school seasons, you got seasons like this, but in recent years, it's been so Kiwi dominated. And while the best two teams in the league still are the Kiwi teams, there's some scrap going on below that. Indeed.
And some enterprising rugby coming from the likes of the Jags, from the likes of the Rebels, although they were only against the Sunwolves this week and did duly put a score on them. But there's also
Do you want to go my favourite game of the week that I want to start with?
Was it perhaps the Sharks and the Lions?
It was. Yes. It was. Yeah. It was not one but two interceptions from Elton Yankees. I know. And Kerwin Bosch getting one of them, and then the other of them being an absolute 14-point swing, where he looked up, tried to throw an Adam Hastings pass, couldn't, and only gone and thrown the ball to Mapimpi, the fastest guy in the league, perhaps.
And away he goes.
He was actually, if you watch him again, he's like jogging.
Yeah, I know.
Didn't break his
not
swing.
a hope of anyone catching him. That crazy implosion mode from the Lions, but also just good
aggressive D, and just like they're like the best South African franchise for just being organised and structured and disciplined and playing like an actual team. They know what they're trying
to do. They as we kind of said in our preview for this game, going like they're probably lacking a bit of individual quality that some of the other franchises.
The Lions' tries were better than their tries. But they soaked a load of pressure and came up with a winning play. And just when a team gets to within 2 yards of their try line. They are the only South African team that doesn't say, all right,
just
have your try.
Have a try and we'll go
They
again.
don't. They keep their structure, they keep their defence, and then it comes up and works for them sometimes.
Flying out of the line, trying to make hits, or getting in the passing lane, as the case may be. And it did. It paid dividends. And then even towards the end, Lions did have chances to win it. They ended up taking 3 off a dominant penalty scrum, and then the Sharks responded with a long Kerwin Bosch penalty.
That 3 was interesting because it made it a 7-point game. So it was giving up their chance to win the game, and then it got duly punished because they didn't even get their losing bonus point from it.
I love little justice moments like that as well. It's a very loose. Maybe we'll go for the draw. It's the same thing that happened with the All Blacks coming to Ireland and kicking the 3 to make it a draw. We were raising eyebrows at that ourselves back then, and this is another instance like that where you're going like, what? Wait, what? Considering the place in the pitch where it was an easy kick, obviously, but it's like much better attacking platform, chance to win the game.
Kerwin Bosch his hand is raised.
Oh yeah,
ball is in Razi's court. His hand is raised.
In my eyes, he should be there. He's a better option. You
can have Willems as third choice. Backup is Kerwin, and Elton is Gonzo.
Yeah, that's always been my take on it.
But Kerwin is coming to his own.
Yeah,
like this is.
He's more of a fit for the. Again, it's more about It's more about Springboks as well. Like when you're thinking Springboks and thinking Springbok 10s, in my mind, Kerwin Bosch fits that mold as well. The way he slots long kicks is excellent as well. Awesome. But the way he's an abrasive defender, he's an abrasive tackler,
he's an abrasive carrier as well. He's a similar. He's not as big, obviously, a unit as Andre Pollard.
No,
but he's got techers to his game. And he can run a back line.
And he doesn't soft out of tackles or go kind of tit-tickling stuff. He doesn't do any of that, which is not in keeping with Springboks. What you want in your 10 is a hard-nosed kind of guy.
But that was awesome. That was a great little justice moment, and it's put the Sharks into a real moment. And they
very
are
strong position
the team
now,
that you would rely on to, in a quarter-final context, go and pull off a win against an Australasian team.
For sure.
They're the SAFA team that you back to do it.
For sure.
And I tell you who aren't. The bloody Bulls, who, as we said last week, we said this Brumbies game would be make or break.
I think it's the Bulls and the Sunwolves are the worst tackling teams in this tournament.
It's not that they're bad; they just take games off.
They're just but some of the attempted tackles are shocking, and some of those tries that were running against them again this week, but all weeks, it's just so soft. No, it's very, very hard to respect anything that they're doing. Like, they're such big lads, and yet they're just barely committing to tackles and soak tackles constantly or slipping off, allowing the hands to be free. But it's like the amount of times teams like break the line or make an enterprise and thinking it's instantly a try against them, and you just think it's like that's a bit of go forward that should result in 10 phases if there's a try to come against a team that's in it to defend.
And in fact, there was a load of tries just being scored off first phase against them, but there was also like little moments like knock-ons from them. Like they were just out of the game from minute 1. And no disrespect to the Brumbies who did what they did. They did what they do. They did their jobs.
They did it very well.
Actually, Henry Spate was looking pretty good.
Yes, as was Corabetti.
Curran
Drani even. Sorry,
nice hat-trick. Just after we were saying we'd pick Karevi over him last week.
Yeah,
he comes back storming back with a hat-trick
to change our minds again. Like, to be honest, it's
he's the better rugby player, to be honest.
Yeah, he is.
Overall, Curran Drani. Karevi may be a slightly better defender. It's an awkward debate.
It is.
You can't have both.
It's true, but the Brumbies, to be fair, have been showing their proficiency at grabbing not just maul tries. In
this game,
anyone
can grab a non-maul try against the Bulls. You just run straight.
Just run the hard line, and there it is.
The Bulls got a good win out in New Zealand last week, and then we were thinking the next week is make or break. Maybe they've turned a corner. Maybe they're going to pull it out. And it was like, I think he was saying, like, I might change my mind if they go and win that game, but if they don't, it'll reinforce everything.
And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm doubling down, going, no,
you're right.
They're rubbish, and they're not going to do anything. And they maybe will get their arse over the line as far as being in the playoffs or not, although that's not a sure thing at all.
Yeah.
But even if they do, they're not a factor in my mind. They're just not a contender for this tournament.
Yeah.
They can't be, looking at the way they play.
And another team that, like, you would have said are making a real go at this up until the news in the week, but like the Stormers did a real job over the Highlanders.
Yeah,
they are such a Sia Khaleesi led team though.
They are.
He lives and breathes like everything that they do. He's captain fantastic. He scored another Texas
2 weeks in a row that he's smashed through to score an amazing try all of his own.
And he's the best blindside flanker in the world.
Yeah.
Ahead of Peter O'Mahony.
Yeah.
He's an awesome player.
Yeah.
And he's injured for the rest of the season, which that's just a burst balloon for the Stormers.
It is, and it's a terrible thing for the World Cup if that's the case as well.
The thing is that we've heard that it's like, this is what's scaring me, is that we've heard it's a knee injury. They haven't told us anything more about it other than
always hairy stuff.
He's instantly out of the Super Rugby, and then he's saying he wants to brace it for 6 weeks and then be back for the Rugby Championship. He's saying he had an option for surgery or just to brace it. We don't have a medical expert in here, so we don't really know. It's just, the only thing is that when you have a knee injury, it's unconfirmed what it is, but they're instantly telling you that for the foreseeable future he's not playing. There's always the scary thought that it could be a cruciate, and then that's the World Cup gone. And we had Dan Levy, we've had DMAC, we're not having to see a bloody Khaleesi missing the World Cup. That'll be the worst one yet.
It would be a shame, and it would actually diminish the Springboks' chances of winning the World Cup, which are currently, in my estimations, very high. High likelihood that Springboks end up being champions. But
that picture involves him lifting the trophy.
Yes, it does. That's obviously terrible news to come out of the game. But what a try.
What a team.
And to be fair, what a performance from them as well. They actually did really well this week.
Putting those Highlanders to bed, those flaky ass Highlanders.
Flaky is right. And some of their plays, like they, for the first half they were a non-entity. They've like literally only registered 3 points and the game was done by half time. And they put in a few nice pretty Kiwi tries towards the end, but only when the game was a done thing. So that's not very encouraging signs. They are on the road in their defence.
I like Newlands is one of my favourite. It's probably my favourite stadium in the whole comp.
It's true.
And they do get a good crowd over there. Good atmosphere.
It's one of my favourite things about all the Kiwi teams though, is that they do try and make plays in every game. It's not, you don't see what we saw from the Bulls where they're just a non-entity in any game. Like even if they're getting bullied physically and they're getting dominated in South Africa, which happens, they're still going to grab a couple of tries. You know, like,
and they're not going to just be completely soft either.
So it's I can at least respect that hustle. They were the second best team in that, and fair, they're the right team won. It's the only addendum is fucking why did Szarzewski have to be the one to go down?
I know. The real story of the week though is the Jags at it again. Destroying Phil Kearns' sanity and
it shouldn't even be a team though. National side.
Well, Rugby Pass posted a great little thing which was showing that actually there were more capped internationals in the Taz team, and they had like more cumulative caps, more players with 50 plus caps, more test players.
As if you needed some kind of reason.
It's hilarious that he wasn't only talking brown, he was actually wrong in what he was saying as well. Like, he was just flat out incorrect.
Kearns is consistently just whinging and not actually making any cogent points or talking
Irish
sense.
In there is one of my favourites.
No, he's a whinger, and he lost, and the Waratahs are not all that, and they never really have been.
It's a huge blow for them in terms of, like, they're still in it obviously because so many teams they're in that little zone just outside of the sort of wild card qualifications.
But they're at a level that where once they come across the Crusaders, they're just not getting any further.
Of course. They did beat them earlier.
They did. I know, but
they're not going to Christchurch and winning. No. And the Jags were just better than them.
They were just the Jags. This is where I'm looking at all of these contenders, and I'm thinking of all of them, and it's so hard. That's why it's such an interesting question when we get into postseason. The Jags need to make it to postseason. And then it's about what do they look like in those like knockout games, because on a player for player basis and on a gameplay basis, they look like the contenders of the group that haven't been there for the last few seasons.
They're obviously, the players are in the mood, which helps when they're Argentinian. Like, they're pulling off the plays, they're in sync with one another in attack, they're reading each other really well, like that De La Fuente chip from Moroni, was it?
Yes, I think so.
Who got in on the wing, and then like. Or was it Moyano?
I think it was Moyano.
Yeah, exactly. With his brace. But that little kick, like, that's just an example of off the cuff, two players in sync with each other. But crucially, it came off a bit of structure, which made that space, and that's what's going into their game in defence as well. Is there's a lot of structure there. They actually know what they're doing. It is World Cup year Argentina.
Yes, it is.
It's a different
dangerous side. Dangerous side. That's why I really want to see them get
the
to that
breakdown
level
as well. Like, they're just firing. Like, I'm amazed they're not tired. They've been touring for so long. They've been travelling. They're playing week in, week out, and then in this game, having just been in New Zealand, they've flown across to Australia. They're just flying into breakdowns on the defence. They're just constantly in their
hustling.
They
don't stop there. They're breaking teams on the basis that they're just not stopping. They're relentless.
They're
There's a
playing with a
relentlessness
load
to
of
their
energy,
play.
and then it's that scary thing that happens when Argentina click, is that they just make plays and then keep making plays, and then you're just powerless to stop this team that you've been beating for 4 years.
Yeah,
They're just doing wildly unreal shit. It's just scaring the hell out of you.
Happens a lot. Happens a lot.
Yeah.
They're a wonderful colour and part of the rugby world. And that's why I would love to see them compete for this title. I'd love to see them see a final, like for the first time. It's unprecedented.
Well, they haven't seen a postseason yet.
They haven't yet.
Get there.
I know. Well, that's the first thing, and there's obviously a load of unanswered questions about that, because finals footy is obviously an inherently different thing.
If for them, they're in pole position to top the conference. If they can see that out, then it's a home quarter final. They're bringing someone to Buenos Aires for a postseason game.
Amazing.
Yeah,
that's
brilliant.
what we want to see. And on the showings, they have deserved it, because you're looking at throughout the SAFA conference, where obviously we've been talking about the Bulls, but then you're talking about the Lions as well, and even the Stormers, they would be hammering a team one week and then ship a load of points the next. And the only team this year that haven't been doing that really are the Jags.
Well, they've gone on this run. They've managed to. They're obviously.
But even the games they've lost, It's not that they're not present in those games.
Yeah.
They've been there to.
And they're the team with the most travel.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're doing.
No, it's an attitude. It's not a fatigue thing. I don't.
It can be. It can be.
It's not on a consistent level. I know. But I'm talking about in terms of just the on again, off again stuff with SAFA teams. I don't think fatigue's the full picture on that. There's something more about the club culture at play.
Yeah, there. And you see it not having nearly as big an impact on the Sharks, who are there to play. By far the best coached team in that conference. Or excluding the Jags. The other games, the Crusaders managed to just the Blues were in that game. They were brave, trying things, and maturity won out. In a sort of a they're comparable.
It was an inevitable feeling, even when you're looking at the Blues playing well and trying things and asking questions. You're going, ultimately, I know the answer.
Richie Mo'unga is looking seriously mature. I don't know if O'Gara has been whispering sweet nothings.
I'm sure he has
ears,
been whispering sweet
he's
things.
Just looking super controlling.
He knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows exactly what he can do and what he should be doing.
Serious argument now. Barrett has got to watch his back, because that guy can run a game.
Yeah, compared to what the Hurricanes do. The Hurricanes are very loosey goosey with it, and they can produce some great plays. It's not entirely but I'm still looking at Mo'unga as being a proper game manager, proper little O'Gara of a thing, who's actually a robust tackler and a pretty aggressive carrier himself.
Used
sometimes.
to run the ball, But the Bowden fans' counter argument is just look at the pack that Mo'unga is playing with, and compare it to the pack that Bodie has to deal with. It's a very big difference. It's hard to judge anyone based on what you do at a 10 based on that, when you're just dominating up front the whole time. But certainly he's cruising through the game, just making the right calls at the right
not
times.
Putting himself in too many compromising positions, which is a good sign in a 10. He's there on his feet often to be calling the next play.
And as a team, they just look assured. This wasn't a crucial game for them, but it was just an assured step.
They weren't going to slip.
They weren't on their blow.
Yeah.
It was wet weather footy. It was a different kind of game.
Getting through a fixture,
and they just did it. 8-point win. Happy days,
which is literally perfect by the metric of the league table as well. So they're doing
the Chiefs, by contrast, are completely lost, and that game, against what in my estimation is a really scrappy ass poor Reds outfit that are trying to be some sort of Exeter light in the way that they go about things, but actually don't have that good a pack. And it was a scary low standard in that game, and they should have lost it. They should have lost it in that last
previewing there are two teams that aren't in contention.
It was the biggest nothing game, but they should have lost at home to the Reds. They pulled that maul down. That was a Mr. P try all day.
Down by red is what he said. He said, why would it be down by? They didn't.
No, but it wasn't. It was dragged down by the Chiefs, and that should have been a try, and it should have been a big win for Brad Thorne's boys. An ugly win, but a big win.
Would have looked good. But so the Chiefs scraped through, but they're not going to be featuring later in the year. And then
I just wanted to say that there wasn't any other fixture. I just want to say the standings are super interesting as things stand. For the first time, I think in forever, we've got 4 teams as things stand from the South African Conference who've played fewer games for the most part than the Kiwi Conference. You'd have 4 teams from the South African Conference minus the Jags, who are really an Argentinian team. 3 South Africans, 1 Argentinian, 2 Australian and 2 Kiwi would be the quarterfinals as of now. Have you ever seen the like?
No, it's crazy. It's lovely. Yeah.
Crucially, that wildcard position of 30 points, the bottom wildcard qualifier is 30 points. The Stormers are also on 30 but have 1 fewer games, so they're not in. And then on 26 Blues, 27 Chiefs, 29 Highlanders, 24 Reds, 26 Taz. Everyone who isn't the Sunwolves is still in this.
Yeah, mathematically for sure. There's a fair few games to go, few more permutations to come. Yeah. And it's just, who are going to be the consistent performers in this latter half of the season? That's the question we have to have answered.
Yeah, and there's like this is where it gets really fun because we're into round 16. There are 3 rounds to go, and every game now is massive. Which you've never been able to say this about Super Rugby, but every game is massive. Yeah. Blues against the Bulls in Auckland this week.
You'd think the loser of that is out.
Probably. Yeah. But the winner of that could be back in.
Well, he's still in the mix for sure.
Well, if the winner of that game is going to be ahead of all the other games happening that week, is going to be in the playoffs as things stand.
Yes, they're pretty much in a position where all 3 rounds are important, and you just have to. It's basically finals footy for them from now to the end of the season, because they need to be winning every game to stay in contention to get as far as the finals. And once they're in the finals, they're in the finals.
These games will be done by the time we've uploaded it. The Friday games, 2 make or break ones. The Rebels against the Taz. For the Rebels conference topping, it's huge. For the Taz, it's just staying in the comp. So they're 2 massive games. They will have happened by the time you see this.
Yes.
So we'll just breeze over them. But I think 2 huge games. I'm curious to see what will have happened in them. Yeah. And then obviously on Saturday, the Brumbies have the luxury of playing the Sunwolves this week, which helps them in their conference
topping. They get to practice their backline moves.
Yeah, huge. But then Chiefs Crusaders is sort of not as important a game, even though it could be fun.
This is in years gone by.
The Chiefs are in it though. If they do win it, they are improbably in it. Yeah. But
it's a big enough ask. Considering that showing that they just had against the Reds,
like 27 points, they're as in it as anybody. But just watching them at the weekend, they look all over the place, and the Crusaders are just gonna slaughter them in a sad, this isn't Dave Rennie's team kind of way.
Indeed.
Yeah, they haven't been the same.
They really haven't. They've been gutted though from top to bottom. Between Dave Rennie, your James Lowes,
D-Mac's injured now.
Cruden gone,
Caballo and everybody else. Liam Messam,
everyone's gone.
Michael Leach, the whole team, the whole band is gone.
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah, they haven't.
Hickory Elliott, but it was an awesome team. It no longer is, and they're just flaky. I predict the Crusaders there. Yeah, Jags away in Queensland against the Reds. Eminently winnable.
It is eminently winnable. They're Queensland aren't as good a team as the Waratahs, who they just beat. It's the only thing with the Jags, like is it a something's got to give thing, because they've been travelling so much, winning so much. Is there a loss coming?
Well, listen, the trip from Sydney to Brisbane.
No, it's not. I know, but it's the end of with the end in sight, finish line in sight, kind of.
We'll see how their cardio's been going.
But I'm going to use our little kind of better team to win buzz and just say the Jags are going to win that. Because on the evidence of this season, the Jags are a better team.
There's massive intrigue then in the SAFA games that are going on later on Saturday afternoon. The Sharks against the Hurricanes. That's super interesting in Natal. Super disciplined, awesome, well drilled Sharks who've just come off a big win against raw talent in the Hurricanes.
The Hurricanes could click, like the Hurricanes have all black credentials all over them and could just blitzkrieg them, or could stifled.
Find themselves in a scrappy game.
But it's definitely it's a stylistic clash as well. They have, they're hot and cold is what I think of them really when I think Hurricanes. It's like when they're hot, they're very, very hot. But when they're cold, it's a little disjointed, it's a little clunky, and sometimes you're questioning what are they actually drilling in that team a lot of the time.
I think the Sharks could be the team, other than the Satyrs, obviously, to shut down what Lampape does. I'd be curious to see that picture, because he just gives them such go forward ball, but he doesn't pass. He is one dimensional. He is predictable, but he does give a lot of go forward. He picks great lines.
Well, a lot of times it's a don't argue, where he's like, he's going to run into you, but he bumps you off anyway.
But he also just finds the right. Like, he does pick good lines. He does, for sure.
And he's little. He's elusive in his littleness as well. Like, he's a little pocket tank.
Are those Sharks men going to be the guys to hold him out? They are good defenders. There's a lot of curious pictures in that one, and obviously for the Sharks, it's a massive game. Every game is make or break at this level, at this moment. And so it's another super curious, super huge game
for sure.
The Lyon Stormers would be infinitely more interesting if Sia Khaleesi was still about.
I suspect the Lions are probably going to win that.
Yeah, it's typical, isn't it, that Khaleesi gets injured and then the next week the Lions
Stormers are going to come across a Stormers shorn of all. Well,
Peter Steff is gone as well, obviously. It has been.
That's despite only being two men, that's half their pack.
Now the Lions have missed. The other news is Warren Whiteley is out for the season for them, and he is a big useful player.
He's their go forward. A lot of their go forward. But that's we're at that part of the season where that happens for all teams.
Listen, just play a blitz defense and hope that Yankees passes you the ball, and you might just get lucky.
You might just curwin in there, run in.
But this is as fun a Super Rugby season as I can remember. Since that season, the last season where Dave Rennie was in charge of the Crusaders before they got shorn, which was also very fun. Was that 2 years? The Chiefs. The Chiefs. That was a fun year as well, but it was different kind of fun where the Kiwi teams were all over them. But as a spreaded tournament,
this is it. Well, when we're talking about round 16 now, but round 15, and even like from about round 12, we've been looking at this going like, this is actually a good year. Everyone's involved. Everyone's kind of hustling.
The best season since the 2014 season when Taz won it, but also the Force were going very well. That was a great season.
Exciting little lines. This is it. So it's going to be interesting to just watch who are they going to emerge as the ones with the proper consistency to get there, and then once they get there, are there going to be upsets, and are there going to be a team to challenge for the title, or is it going to be the Crusaders going for their 3 in a row? Because the Crusaders probably look like the best team on balance of all of them, looking at all of them playing their games. So you're thinking deserving
of
winning.
They have to go to Christchurch to win.
Exactly.
And win. Somebody has to do that.
So that's obviously not the likely.
The Jags are probably the most likely team to do it.
I would say so.
Just because of the
way they play and I think they would present the most difficult challenge for the Crusaders compared to what the other teams bring. They're also the closest thing to an unknown for the Crusaders, because the Crusaders have played all of these teams before, but they haven't played this Jags this year properly.
I'm going to stick with my Sharks love, though, and just say that it's in their club DNA
to do it.
Do you remember that game years ago when there was a red card for, I can't remember who, but one of the Sharks players was red carded, and they played the whole game in Christchurch with 14 men and won it. That was just insane.
Phenomenal.
That was Richie McCaw and Dan Carter as well. Like the Sharks, they just have those touring things. Like I really want them in the playoffs just because I think that they can pull something off here.
They have a big game mentality that you definitely kind of have to value in the context of a tournament like this.
That said, this regular season game against the Canes could be a real slip up.
It's true. It's danger. But excitement all over.
Totally.
Super Rugby heating up as we have led with all the last few weeks is just it's getting proper good now. The first few rounds are only a warm up anyway in that comp. We're only getting started then. I suppose we can move on to our other news, to find the kind of little news of the week. And there was a bit of news this week, and there is. Obviously, we're
cramming a couple of things into this segment just to sort of for ease of show, because obviously we would talk about, which I guess we'll start with the sevens. And the under-20s is kicking off next week, but the sevens is obviously in this massively cool place. We couldn't not mention it. It is a different code, so we don't this is a Union 15s podcast. But it's the last week. It's in Paris. We have been watching it. It's a super fun sport. If you're not into it, you should be.
Yeah, it's great fun.
Fiji and the USA,
2 points separate them.
2 points separate them. I actually don't know who to root for. I really like both teams. A lot. And I think there's merit to both. Like, you want Fiji to win. They're great. But then also the USA and the potential there. It's like both sides are both David and Goliath, if you know what I mean. In the rugby context, in the rugby sevens context, Fiji are Goliath, but also as a nation they're David, and the USA is the opposite.
True, actually. But the USA have put such resource and time into it, and I just think the thought behind how they play the game is excellent in terms of how they use their sprinters, which is the asset they have.
But it's not just sprinters. Perry Baker is such an athlete. Like, Carl Nas is a sprinter. Perry Baker is super quick, but he's such an athlete.
No, it's true. But then I'm looking at the makeup of their team. Then there's a lot of physicality in the tight there to facilitate those finishers.
Totally.
But then Fiji is a slightly different approach, where they're all pretty robust and physical, but they're also crazy offloads. You're having like a grand total of like 15 offloads in a game and only 3 rooks when they did manage to get snagged.
It legitimately is winner takes all this week in Paris. If either side,
I think in theory, if both of them bottle it and go completely south, then New Zealand could take it, but they're a bit far back.
No, that couldn't happen, could it?
only if I think they're like way outside, like even 20 points.
No. They couldn't even. No. They could get to
22 points.
Fiji would need to get no points.
No points. Yeah, that's never going to happen. Never
what are you talking about?
Never going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Fiji and the US, who have been the two best teams overall, and then New Zealand and South Africa in their own little pocket, a few points behind.
The South African Sevens team was short of a lot of their players
talent
at the start of this year.
15s, yeah. In World Cup years, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Same way that a lot of 15s teams, like the Fiji, a lot of 15s players went back to sevens for the Olympics, and that's going to happen now that that's part of the calendar. That's going to flip between those codes.
Totally.
But this year, no doubt that those two teams are deserving of it, and it's just whoever's going to be better on that weekend is going to take it. So it comes down to a one tournament kind of was. No slip ups in the group.
And if you get a chance, World Rugby just get infinite credit for how they broadcast this on YouTube and Facebook and everywhere. It's just
very easy
so
to find
accessible.
it. Yeah, and normally I open my computer screen and there's a little thing saying like, oh, there's the sevens. If I'm going towards Facebook, it's like, oh, sevens is happening.
Yeah,
and it's great.
You just get to watch it. So they do a great job broadcasting it, and it's so worth a watch.
Yeah, for sure. Great fun game.
Yeah. The other thing that's happening, we're only going to touch on it really, is just as a prelude, is next week, by the time we shoot our next podcast, the Under-20 World Cup will have kicked off.
Yeah.
So the structure of it obviously is just 3 pools of four, 12 teams in it. You've got your 6 nations, your 4 nations, Fiji and Georgia.
Yeah, exactly.
There's not a lot of weakness. I would say that Scotland might be the weakest team at this level.
Looking at it, for sure. Because you're looking at like Italy,
Georgia are deceptively good at under-20 level, and I actually don't know what Fiji bring at under-20 level. It could be terrible.
I don't know what Australia are bringing either.
No, neither do I. There's a lot that you don't know, but there's also watching the kids play rugby has.
It's great merit to it. It's a great tournament. To be honest, since it goes back, it's a very historical one. There's such esteem and such. It's just great experience for guys of this age, and then it's always interesting. You do spot a few bolters who end up lighten up the 15s game. And
Andre Pollard was player of this tournament. I think 2014, and that autumn he was put into the rugby championship team.
I think more recently that
scored 2 tries against the All Blacks.
James Ryan was playing in this tournament before, and then he was captain for this team before he was capped for Leinster.
He was capped for Ireland senior team before he was capped for Leinster. Exactly.
So there's a lot of bolters that you see in these tournaments, and it's just a great little kind of part of the rugby calendar.
Both Georgia and Italy should be hoping that there's an awesome 10 who's going to come into his own in this tournament.
Yes, that's what we're looking for.
That's like the biggest high stakes for those two teams, and actually Fiji, you could say as well.
Fiji would not,
just if you could get like a baller of a 10, just straight in there into the World Cup squad. But it's good for looking at just the future of these nations and patterns they're in. Important not to read too much in it. You're looking at talent, like the actual structure and coaching of the teams is less relevant going forward. It's relevant for who wins the tournament. So
certainly from an Irish perspective with it, it's kind of curious because a lot of these, like the under-20s is only an entity for these kinds of tournaments, so it's like they're kind of hodgepodge together from where they're playing more often.
Rarely well
schools
coached.
And clubs, rarely well coached.
Rarely well resourced.
So you're looking at great potential, but you're looking at also a kind of a mixed bag of a team and a unit.
From big picture speak, you're really just scouting for talent, but also just enjoying the games. There's a lot of really fun games. It is, as you say, a tournament of esteem, and it'll be curious to see who wins it. You don't go very far betting against the Baby Blacks and England at this level.
England tend to be bigger and stronger than most at this level, and that can tell in these
occasionally
games.
You get a good French team at this level as well.
Sometimes, so it's all worth watching.
The 3 pools are Australia, England, Ireland and Italy. That's pool 1. Pool A, or that's pool B in fact. I started with pool B for no reason. There's Georgia, New Zealand, South Africa and Scotland is another pool.
That's pool C.
Pool C,
and back for pool A.
New Zealand and South Africa in both pools. World Cup as well. Argentina, Fiji, France and Wales, which feels like the weakest group, but there could be some technical try-scoring madness going on in there.
So we'll be watching a bit of that and would encourage you to do same, because it's definitely well worth having a look at those games while they're going on, and well worth following your team. It'll be come on Ireland again. We'll have green jerseys on.
And then England 15, coached by Jim Malander, are playing the Barbarians, who have picked a great selection of awesome players. Your Facundo Isas and your Francois Lowe's and your Bill Matas and the like. and then also some backs as well. So there's potential for the Babas to cut loose. There's potential. It's just scouting some talent for England. It's weird that Eddie Jones isn't coaching him. It's a bit of a showcase. They do this game every year. But this in a World Cup year, it feels kind of like an intrusion more than anything else.
Well, it's not an intrusion though. It'll be fine.
On England's plans. That's why Eddie Jones isn't even coaching them.
For sure. So it is a bit strange that it's happening at the same weekend as the Premiership.
They do that every year. It's so
well, it just means that half the England team aren't available.
Cipriani isn't even playing for them.
Yeah, but that's weird. And that was the one little news that I heard. I was like, why isn't Cipriani playing for them? I don't know what's going on.
This game of all games,
against the Babas, be great fun. Get him out there.
Exactly what you want.
But no, apparently not. But I'll still turn an eye towards it. It's the Babas. It's always fun to watch.
Yeah, they're playing it on Sunday, which is considered off them because there's nothing else going on.
This is it. They'll just be on in the background and doing some other stuff. So that's the Babas back in action, and Pat Lam back at the helm for some more barnstorming in Twickenham.
Pat Lam to do the Gatland Lions job in the sense that we've just found a coach we like. Pat Lam will just always coach
he's now Babas coach.
For life.
Baba Bristol.
The other bit of news, obviously, that we mentioned was Sia Khaleesi and Warren Whiteley are out for the rest of the Super Rugby season. And just for the knee injury for Sia, I just really hope it's not a cruciate. But we spoke about that earlier on.
The other kind of vague injury, not quite news because it's not set in stone yet, but Sean O'Brien is going in for surgery and looks like it's dead.
We know that his World Cup is done.
We know that much, but it's whether he'll be able to do anything.
Speaking to a couple of medical professionals who I know, and we know they knew the specific hip procedure that he was getting, and were extremely skeptical about his prospects of playing rugby again. We've been here before with Sean O'Brien, and he has. He's a bit like Beric Dindari, and he comes back a little less every time, but. He could surprise everyone. I'm glad he got his contract with London and Irish signed. I hope he'll go over there and be a good ambassador. But it has to be said, what a legend of the game. If this is it for Sean O'Brien, for Irish rugby, a special place in our hearts.
I'll tip our hats to him. He's
courageous as a player.
Oh my god, the way he flung his body into every contact, and anytime there was like a big name player who was a big kind of monster, he would be going straight for him and from minute one trying to run over these big monsters of the game and try and blitz. And I think his opus was that Lions tour just gone. I think he was phenomenal.
I was going to say, I was super happy for him on that because he'd always been brilliant for Ireland. Like, he burst on the scene. His possibly his best ever season was 2011 for Leinster, when he really broke the season and he was just Leinster's MVP.
He was unstoppable.
We thought Rocky Elson was good, and then Sean O'Brien showed us what good is, and then but I was super happy for him that after he'd obviously shown his colours in World Cups gone by, but it had always been stop-start with injury. He was picking up honours along the way, no doubt, and everyone knew he was a legend. But he really got to make a name for himself in the Southern Hemisphere in that tour. And he did. He made an impact, and Kiwis know who he is now forever.
Yes,
because of that tour.
Exactly.
I was delighted.
Deserving of the man, because he's been sensational. As Leinster men, we can't speak with anything other than
as rugby fans.
But as rugby fans too, you have to tip your hat to what an immense player that guy was and is, and always shall be in memory. And I'm torn on it. It would be nice if he could get back to play, but then Premiership's no place for you if you're not up to the physicality of it.
The suspicion that I have is that London Irish, a lot of people have made this point, but they kind of knew what they were getting into when they got him. He's going to be more of a brand ambassador. He's going to be this or that.
Well, if he can ask him to make the 20 jersey his own. There's maybe a possibility of him becoming a good 15 to 20 minutes.
The first thing that has to happen is he has to get fit again.
That's exactly.
He has this injury. He has to get a surgery.
But if you're rolling him out week in, week out at 6 or 7,
obviously
he's gonna break again.
So that's Shawnee, and we love and respect you and hope that this isn't the end, but it may be, and it is for a Test jersey and a Leinster jersey, and super glad he got to lift the trophy. It was a nice
that was a lovely touch.
Leinster lift trophies better than anybody.
Indeed,
they do.
Well, they have good practice at it as well.
Yeah, I know, but they always lift it in twos or give it to the right person, and it's just a real great camaraderie style to how they lift trophies.
Yeah, no, it's always a great picture, and that was no different.
Just to on a similar note,
to stick with Leinster for
I was going to say on a similar note, Dmitry Szarzewski is retiring.
He's retiring,
And I just read a little piece. Obviously, he gave an interview. about it, and he was saying just like he was world weary from the game, and he was kind of just jaded and sick of it, and he really did love playing rugby, and he loved the camaraderie of being with players, but more and more his experience of the game is just pain, and he's just in constant pain, and he's obviously had 7 surgeries. He spends more time on the medical table or in rehab than he does with his team, and so he's hanging up his boots, and he gave sort of a jaded and sad interview, and it's just a reminder of what can be the ill consequences of this game.
This is a game that particularly
another warrior as well.
Those kind of attritional players who just never shirk from the contact. As admirable as it is, it's only a matter of time before that this game will choose you up.
There's a new breed. Now that the super athletes are in, there's for guys who aren't like Will Skelton, who can do what he wants seemingly. You've got to be smart with your body, and there's definitely a little more like guys are picking weak shoulders, getting your butt. Like a great example of this was Jamie Heaslip, who in and of himself is a super athlete. Now he did end up retiring through an injury, but he went through most of his career uninjured, and he is not going to be long term damaged by the game in the way that some guys are. Because he was super smart with what he did with his body everywhere on the pitch. He was making sure he wasn't getting injured, but also off the pitch. He rehabbed really well. He was a military guy, so he knew all the sort of like he had like an altitude thing that he slept in. Or
he was very much nerdy on the game. You used to see him in the dressing room cam, and he'd be walking around with an ice pack on his head.
He was just all kinds of clever things. And there's definitely, like, as well as concussion protocols and everything else, a direction that the game is going to have to go in is players being educated and smart about how and what they're doing with their bodies, both on and off the pitch. And I think Szarzewski is an example of what can go wrong if you're just, Bernard Jackman style gung-hoing for the contact.
Yeah, for sure. It's like there's always going to be a place for those guys, because those guys are always going to burst on the scene. You're going to see these barnstorming ball carriers who just have no regard for their own body. But that's the point, is that
everyone has to make an effort to educate these guys.
Well, true, but
at a younger age than pro.
This is it. But it feels like over a pro career with injury is the way that those learnings come. But then there are those few exceptions, like your Jamie Heaslip, or like when you're looking at clips from old Lions tours when Johnny Wilkinson was there icing his leg that had a bit of tightness, and he's there in a big dramatic looking thing on the bed, and it's like, oh, are you going to be all right, says the journo, and he's like, oh yeah, no, this is all just like medical protocol, I have to do this, and then I'll rest, and then I'll move it, and all this, I'll be fine for the game. And then surely he was.
But that's the point, is that you don't need guys learning that by getting bad injuries.
No.
At the point, there should be sort of around the world education things drilled in about just how to use your body a little smarter, and you can still be, as evidenced, Heaslip's a prime example, because he was actually more effective for that efficiency, and not less effective.
It's true, because if you're thinking about how to use your body that much, then you're going to be spoiling things
you're putting it in the right places. You're attacking gaps and soft shoulders, and I think, and also just not breaking as the game goes on, so you're still as present in minute 78 as you were in minute 1.
Exactly.
So there's all kinds of good there. But obviously Szarzewski is retiring, and he's been a long mainstay in the game for years and years and years with his beautiful locks of hair, which I'm sure you appreciate.
I'm always appreciative of a nice hairy player. Need a bit more of that, little bouncing guys around the pitch.
And I did wish him hopefully all the best to recover and feel better about life, because he does have a grand career to look back on.
A lot of great tape, and he's been a part of a great many great French teams, and he's a legend, same as Sean O'Brien. You can't shirk that or can't slight that. But just even thinking now that on that point of using your body and clarity of body, you're talking about World Rugby and their guidelines that they've published, or they've published a little video explanation of what their rationale is, or what the questions that they're asking in terms of what the refs are thinking around the tackle area, high tackle. So it's based on deciding whether it's a genuine high tackle or a shoulder charge.
So difficult to explain. Like, you even summarize. Like, it's a 12-minute video, and like it's efficient enough in the sense that each one of the 12 minutes matters. It's brain melty enough. I have my quibbles with it. Like, there's this high tackle versus shoulder charge thing,
which based on where the angle of the arm, whether it's ahead of you or behind you, dictates whether it's a tackle thing, which is fine. It's
mitigating factors appears to be a massive thing, which just further baffles the Cipriani call.
Well, I think there was a
little period
wrong.
but there was a little period there where it seemed like any shoulder to the head was red.
Yeah.
And it feels like as confused as Ruiz can get, if he was aware of the protocols as per that video, I can't imagine him giving a red card to Cipriani for that. If mitigating factors exist at all, the fact that he didn't really touch the guy.
Well, they spoke of mitigating and aggravating factors conversely. So you're thinking things like mitigating factors are like if the initial contact is low and then it goes high. If
the player ducks,
if it's a dominant hit tackle that they then complete, or if it's a passive tackle that they come out of.
The aggravating factors just are if it's open space and the guy has loads of time to adjust and then makes a high tackle.
Because what they're trying to encourage broadly, seemingly from this, is to get players and coaches bringing the tackle height lower, which is what they've been talking about. So if you're in a clean line of sight and you still go high to make that chest hit and then make contact with the head dangerously, that's probably going to be red.
Well, it's not like they come up, they have their factors for red and yellow as they explain are like if it's shoulder to the head or if it's connection with the head and it's dangerous and it has some force, then it's a red, and then that can be changed to a yellow if there are mitigating factors and no aggravating factors. But if that's an open space, that's just a red card. So you have to be careful.
So like it was interesting. It was a bit of clarity in terms of what they're getting at, which I appreciate.
But there were still little moments in that video that pissed me off, which was just like they had written under it like this will give clarity and consistency to decisions, and then they were saying like a ref could interpret this as enough mitigation to move it from a red to a yellow. And it's like, or it could not. It's like the ref might do this, or the ref. There were all of these little.
So it leads you to believe that maybe consistency won't be there. And like we were talking about Nigel Owens earlier in the podcast about his leniency will probably stand then if a lot of this is still up to interpretation, then there's probably going to be differing things between each ref. So
I don't remember one of the mitigating factors as were listed being he thought he had the ball.
He thought he had the ball, so play on.
No, that was crazy. The Fraser Brown one is still a yellow, and the Rob Kearney one is still a red. Neither of them had to do with the high tackle.
But this video was an interesting watch, I suppose, and it's good to just have a bit of context, because obviously when you're listening to a ref, like we know the laws, and knowing the laws is one thing, but to listen to a ref talking about mitigating factors doesn't really flow with the laws at all.
The law is the law, but it's the interpretation of the law as dictated by World Rugby. That's everything. And that's ebbing and flowing and changing.
And it seems to be in constant flux. So it's nice to get little tidbits like this to at least be able to tether some of the thoughts that we're seeing, or some of the things we're seeing on the pitch. Other news then was Rob Kearney signing on for Leinster.
Change pace. I think the last couple of weeks we've mentioned that we think he might be going after a Sean O'Brien post, and there was all sorts of rumours that he's going to France.
Nope, he ain't going nowhere.
He
likes Dublin. He likes the fact that he doesn't have to be I heard him interviewed there, and he seems to think that and he's probably right, going to either France or England will mean playing week in week out at 15 or more than likely, rather than what he's doing now, which is proper man management.
To the IRFU that they manage his body a little bit, and towards the end of the career he has to be conscious, as much as making bank is nice, he has to be conscious of destroying his body.
Exactly.
He's got to this point.
There's a balance with all of that.
I think he was holding out for a 2-year contract like Keane Healy got, and he wasn't getting it. He was getting a 1-year contract. So that just is what it is.
Well, sure, last week we found out Nusafora is staying, so the IRFU are still going to be playing hardball with a lot of these, like Gordon Darcy was apparently the same.
I like Nusafora a lot, but Jesus Christ, pay the sevens players.
No, he won't do that. Well, the other thing over his head is the women's game. He has to
he's
answer
ruthless.
for that. He's ruthless is right, but and he's effective, to be fair. But there are
casualties along the way.
There are casualties along the way. But Rob is not one of them. He's renewed anyway, and so he'll be here next year. But in other Leinster news, which I see isn't actually down there, we've let go 2 locks to Zebra. Ian Nagel and Mick Kearney are both leaving Leinster and joining Zebra.
We had known that Ian Nagel was going there, and I had known that Mick Kearney was going. I just didn't know he was going there. So it's
good news for Zebra, is what it is.
It's good news. It's probably I feel like Mick Kearney should have stayed over Ross Maloney, but they seem to see something in Ross Maloney. So
fair enough. But it means that the Leinster depth and kind of talent machine will have to be tested again, because we only saw little bits of game time from Jack Dunn and such.
Jack Dunn.
But it's
there's promise there.
There is.
I think I think they'll be fine.
Probably.
But maybe a season or two of or a season of a little bit of hurt in those
particular areas.
But that's good news for Zebra. A bit of heft.
Sure. They need that because
Michael Bradley.
They've actually been like a lot of their shape this year has been good, but they've just been losing games. Yeah. So it'd be nice. They
need big enforcers to protect Carlo Canna from all contact.
But also 2 Leinster men in the dressing room is probably not a bad thing either.
Nick Kearney in particular, because he's been there for those big games. Ian Nagel's more of a journeyman, but Nick Kearney has been there for a decent period now, and he's played some European games with the big boys.
So it's about setting standards over there and making sure they're up to it in training, and it could be a great thing for Zebra.
In similar news, Sam Davis, who's been an Osprey stalwart now for many a year, is going to Dragons to make room for Gareth Anscombe. Is going up to Ospreys,
right?
And that just makes me a little sad. He's been such an Osprey.
Yeah,
and he's been good in his own little way, and I just think it's a bit sad. I don't know why, but I just think it's a bit sad.
Maybe he'll be Dragons Renaissance.
I hope so.
Probably would be nice to one of these years.
There's nothing to like about the Ospreys. I don't like. I just
Alan Wynne-Jones, Justin Tipperick.
No, I'll give you that. They're two players, but I mean, just the way that they conduct themselves and everything about the club, and if you can just add just a dismissive disdain for loyalty and disregard for loyalty and everything else to the list of problems with that franchise, and it's just
it's wearying. And they're the only Welsh representatives now, so we'll have to look at them, and they won't do anything.
Yeah,
Anscombe no.
So that's just sad news that Sam Davis is gone.
Yes,
there you go. Ireland named their World Cup squad. The final bit of news, the World Cup training squad. We had Scotland's a few weeks back.
Fiji as well.
Fiji have done theirs as well, that's right. Their big news was obviously their defence coach, but they named a hell of a squad.
Yes, obviously, as they always would.
Ireland's squad is good.
Really tasty as well.
As
interesting. Big omissions probably just, well,
I think the biggest news, there's 2 bits of big news. One is Rory Scannell over McCluskey, which from our perspective of what we're talking about in Irish rugby is massive, because it could give rise to what we desperately need, which is 2 distributors on the field. Yeah. And as Gary with ball in hand you haven't really seen the distribution of Gary at all this year.
No.
It hasn't been used. Catch pass hasn't been as good as it was when you think back to that Scotland game last year.
Yeah, for sure.
He's just not doing that as much. And Ireland, for sure, with the way that they're attacking and just being stymied by defence after defence after defence, including Italy, stymieing them for large parts.
Yeah. They need more ball players in there.
2 distributors in the back line. And what we've been shouting for is the potential of because we want Chris Farrell maybe in that 13 jersey with Ringrose to come off the bench. We like the idea maybe of Joey Carberry at 15.
We still do,
but we're highly sceptical of that being an option. So getting Rory Scannell in there just increases the likelihood of maybe
it reassures me at least, because if you're talking about the omission is McCluskey then from up north, but McCluskey's never shown enough in the green jersey to do it, and I don't think he's shown enough in it for Ulster this year.
Something that I've been saying all year is that every test cap that was given to McCluskey should have been given to Rory Scannell, and if that was the case, he would have a much better chance of being ultimately selected for Joe, because he just doesn't have enough international test mileage in the clock for Joe to trust him, more than likely. But what my hope is that he's just going to have a ballerific training camp and Joe's going to be convinced. But it's a hope.
It's a hope. Well, he hasn't actually been at his ballerific self in the Munster system either as well. He's been good, but he's been in a more defensively minded...
He was very good when Tyler Blindall was at 10.
Yes.
He was keeping them afloat, because Tyler Blindall was not doing much.
Yes, it's true.
I wouldn't hold the 2 semi-final defeats against him.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying he's probably more of a footballer than he's shown, and more of a passer than he's allowed to show in that Munster outfit.
Yeah, he's a distributing player.
This is it, which is asking the right questions. If it was McCluskey and Aki and Farrell and Henshaw, you're going like that's a lot of blunt heft.
So they've thrown a new face and a new picture in there, which is good.
Yeah.
The other bit of interesting news that I don't really like is
Sean Klein over Quinn
Roux. The end of
they're kind of a like for like player type, but I actually just rate Quinn Roux slightly more. But
I think he's taking a look at John Klein and seeing if he can do with him what he does with all the other Munster players, or Peter O'Mahony in particular. Sprinkle a bit of Joe Schmidt magic dust, and he doesn't give away those mad penalties that he does for Munster. But Jean Klein is a penalty machine and a bit of a crazy player and flaky and
not all that
inconsistent.
Overwhelmingly physical either for
it's
being the enforcer role that he has. So and he's certainly not another footballer that we're putting in there, to be honest. He's there to be an enforcer.
And the other one that a lot of people have been bitching about is Mike Haley, which I kind of get. I don't think he's going to be involved ultimately in the squad.
I don't think he's at the international level. I think he's a lovely footballer. I actually think he's a nice fullback.
It almost feels like future experience. I know Joe's not going to be around. Just getting him involved and seeing the squad, because maybe he'll come up at some point. But it just occurred to me that like he could be, because Joe's looking for a backup to Rob. I hope that he hasn't come up with Mike Haley as an answer.
That would be wrong.
It's Joey Carberry.
But no, he's 10 now apparently. Yeah, some of his best games have been from 15. But he's a 10.
We've said it plenty.
Yes.
But that I think rounds up our other news. A load of news this week.
A lot of stuff happening off the field.
Yeah.
But that wraps us up for the show as well. And another good one, another one in the books.
Another one in the books is right. Long enough one. We kept it under the 2 hours though.
Just
as we're wont to do.
Indeed.
So happy days. We're finishing up. That was 51 and we'll see you in 52.
See you in 52 for the review of the Premiership and onwards with the top tours.
And the Under-20 Championship kicking off. And we're also going to be previewing the Union Cup that's going on in DCU, which we're just going to take a look broad picture in the preview, and then we're going to go to it next week and give you a review and some coverage from it.
Yeah, which would be good too.
We could even maybe go wild and get some footage, but
if we'll bring the little camera anyway and try and see some stuff. Yeah,
maybe. You never know.
You never know. We'll see what
we're going to do.
Yeah.
Mixing it up.
But thanks very much for all our subs for watching us. And we'll see you next week, guys. Thanks.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye. All right. You're on.
Yes, I am indeed. The little Leinster ball, it's lighter.
You unplugged it. I love it. And I just topped it.
Bopped to the top of it.
Nice though, better than last week.